go around and have each of you announce where you are signing into the meeting from in compliance with the state regulations for remote meetings.
Donna Stallings signing in from Lathrop Village, my home.
Bruce Cantor from Oakland County, Lathrop Village, Michigan.
Councilman Ian Ferguson, Oakland County, not in the basement, Lathrop Village.
Kelly Garrett signing in from Oakland County, Lathrop Village, Michigan.
Jim Nelson, Troy, Michigan, Oakland County.
I think we just needed the elected officials, so I think we're good, but thank you.
I will mute.
Thanks, Jim.
And the first item on the agenda is at the request of the Historical Society, and I see Annette Kingsbury's here, so
Hello.
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 How are you, Annette?
Good.
Good.
Is Robin here or no?
Not, I don't see her online.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is Mike Griffin. She texted me that her laptop is taking a long time to boot up.
Oh,
So she's been trying to join. So I don't know if Annette wants to go ahead.
but up to you, Mike.
You can go ahead.
Okay. Well, hopefully you all received the memo I emailed you on sort of just to bring you up to speed where we are. As you know, we have really been struggling this year, lost our office. And in doing our research on what other communities do, as I said in the memo, they all have some kind of support from their municipality, usually, especially for location. And we've been kind of stymied in that regard because offices in Lathrop are just way too expensive. And the zoning ordinance doesn't allow us to operate in a house. So we were wondering if there would be any will there to form a subcommittee to help us study a way forward and see if the city can participate in getting the Historical Society on more solid footing and kind of assuring the future of it. We feel the archive we have is extremely valuable. We've been told it's an extremely complete archive by a state, a librarian who came and evaluated us for our grant. And we just think it's worth saving. So any questions, I'd be happy to, Mike and I will be happy to field them.
So do you guys have, I mean, I know you were talking about the zoning ordinance. Do you guys have an option, or have you explored an option if that zoning, if the zoning didn't prevent you from doing that? I'm just curious.
We haven't actually explored them. We know there are some homes that are long vacant in the city that people are, paying the taxes, mowing the lawn, that sort of thing. But I didn't feel comfortable actually contacting a property owner when we don't have the wherewithal to acquire a place or even rent it at any kind of market rate.
Yeah, so there hasn't been any contact with somebody. Obviously if we want more of a permanent location, so if we were to buy a house, we wouldn't have the financial resources to do anything like that,
Right.
or to rent it. I mean, we would hopefully be on a longer term lease, because the places that we have been in, we haven't had leases because the landlords that we had were gracious enough to let us either stay there for free and no utilities, or just charge the utilities. We were in a couple of Surnow locations and kind of been bounced around, and we have a huge collection that's now as I think the letter said, in the basement of the library over there. It's just so expensive and heavy to keep moving around. So I think we were just looking for more of a permanent location to have the archives and then start displaying them. I mean, much like most of the other cities that have historical societies around here have. So,
Cheryl, is there any opportunity, in terms of the study that we're talking tonight about commissioning for the, for the extra space for the police, to see if there's any opportunity in that study to see if, there would be any room for the Historical Society?
We could try, but I don't anticipate that the police department is going to have extra space after we meet all of their needs.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I guess the other option is to see if there's any way that the city might be able to come up with some money to be able to help out like other cities do. Which I don't know if that's possible. We'd have to look. I mean,
Right, and in a lot of cases, the property was donated and the city took over. I think Royal Oak is in the old fire hall, and Berkeley's kind of in the same situation. Obviously, we don't have an old fire hall, and we have the old town hall, but if someone were to,
Question real quick.
sure.
So I know like with the Lathrop Community Foundation, the Children's Garden, I think the homeowners, they do some fundraising to also kind of to help them with some costs. Can you all tell me about any fundraisers that you may have coming up or have done?
Well, we don't have anything in the immediate future planned. We've only had small fundraisers since I've been here, which is just a few years, but selling the historic home plaques, copies of blueprints, photos, that sort of thing. I guess they did do home tours in the past, which was a major source of revenue. I'm told that they did that in conjunction with a garden club, which doesn't exist anymore. And that takes a lot of volunteer time. I did look last year into just the cost of renting a bus. Chris Clough gave me some names of companies to call to see about maybe just doing a drive around kind of historic home tour. But the cost of a small enough bus was prohibited. It'd be like $20 or more per person just to rent the bus. So that just didn't seem workable. I understand the city now has a small bus, so maybe that situation will change. I don't know if we'd be able to do that or not.
And I think in our situation, we would have to do some major fundraising to be able, because we need a space for all of this stuff. And I think the one we looked at was $800 a month on a lower level in one of the buildings on Southfield Road. And
And so also it was already, I know that I saw something go back and forth about a grant through, was it, I think Oakland County or something? You said you already did apply for that one. I think it was for $50,000.
No, I don't know what you're referring to there. We had a state grant a couple of years ago, but we didn't actually get cash. We received materials and an intern in that one.
Cheryl, didn't you send something for that, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, I sent it was a couple months ago now.
You sent us an email about a COVID related grant program. You had to show that you had been harmed by COVID, and that didn't apply to us. Is that the one you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah, our problems really weren't related to COVID.
Well, I guess their thinking was if you were impacted in your ability to have events or to host fundraisers, you were impacted. So.
Well, the way I read it was pretty specific about the documentation. So I'm sure that I've sent that to Robin, or you sent it to Robin, but.
Okay.
And have you guys explored the possibility? I'm just trying to think creative here. I know you said Berkeley has an old firehouse or something. Is there any kind of opportunity to, maybe since, Berkeley is a close community that's geographically close to us, maybe offering to, sorry about that. I can't silence it, but maybe offering to share space with them and pick up some of the costs. Would that be something you think another community that's close by might be agreeable to?
To my knowledge, we have not approached any other communities. I've thought about whether Southfield might have room because they have several buildings their historical society operates. I think our first desire would be to keep it in Lathrop Village.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just trying to think outside of the box a little bit here.
In fact, I have a sister who's a librarian at Lawrence Tech, and we asked her if there'd be any interest there, and she said they don't even take care of their own archives. They don't care at all about them, so they wouldn't be interested in housing ours.
And a lot of the ones that we talked to, I talked to Royal Oak in Birmingham, and they operate as part of the recreation department, you know, kind of as a community type event. And, you know, the city, like in both cases, they have, you know, places that the city provided them, and, you know, then they pay the, you know, utilities or operating expenses, but it's just the cost of finding a place. And, you know, other areas have put millages on the ballot to support their historic, you know, districts or societies. I think Oakland Township just had one recently. I think Robin might be on now. I don't know. She said she can now see. So I don't know if maybe if you could unmute her if you can. But yeah, I guess the reason that we're coming to you
Hello?
is we're at a point where we just want to see, you know, if the city, you know, has a will to, you know, help us maintain this part of the history of Lathrop Village, other artifacts that we have. And, you know, if they don't, then I guess we just go on our way and try to find something. But I don't think it's sustainable to keep moving from place to place at the behest of, you know, people that are good enough to give us free, you know, free space.
Hi, I don't know. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can
Yeah.
hear you.
Ah, hello. Sorry I'm late.
All right. We can hear you. Is just a quick question, and maybe to Cheryl. I don't know how off the ground we are with this garden plot project within Rec, but is there a way that this group can partner with that group? Is that possible? You know, maybe they can realize some future fundraisers. I'm just thinking short term right now until we can kind of figure out where to navigate them to put all the archive material.
I'm not certain. I would think that their fundraising would be to sustain their efforts. So I guess my question would be, what has the Historical Society approached it from a sustainability plan in terms of what are the resources needed to maintain the archives or to have a display area, and then what are the associated costs? It's difficult for council to say what their partnership or participation could be unless there's an overall overarching plan.
Our annual operating costs in terms of the materials we need to process the collection and or do any kind of displays are pretty minimal. When I became president, which is over 10 years ago, we had about $10,000 in our budget. We have about $1,000 left after all of the moves, but we're pretty frugal.
Operation, I'm sorry, I might have not heard it. What was your annual operations cost?
Oh, I'm just saying that we've made $10,000 last more than 10 years.
Yeah, I think what Cheryl was getting at though is, I mean, not only the operation costs, but you know, what are the costs, including, you know, potential facility, you know, how much, you know, kind of an overarching plan with you know, kind of a monthly budget or a yearly budget, and that could then, you know, help us determine. I mean, help us at least give us a framework to look at in terms of, you know, financial support.
Okay. Our biggest obstacle right now is a space to work in. And I believe that in our note to you, Annette gave you some of the rental costs in the area. So, I mean, once we have a safe place, our operating expenses are minimal. They're only $2,000 or $3,000 a year at most.
So what we can do, just so we can look at this objectively as a council, we can either put a committee together to flesh this stuff out together, or the historical society can put together like not a business plan, but something that lets us know exactly what you think the operation, like a budget, I guess, that shows what a space will cost, everything like that, and then present it as a proposal to the council.
Well, the only thing is, it would depend so much on whether it was in a home or in a rented office space. And the residential thing, again, we're stuck. Would you want us to just go ahead and come up with a budget for residential, even though right now we wouldn't be allowed to go in there?
Scott, could that be handled via a variance, or is that something that couldn't be varianced out?
Well, I guess, so if the intent is to take a residential property and utilize it as an office, for lack of a better term, then that's not something that would be ZBA doable. But if it's simply storage of materials, if it was, if someone was living there, then that would be, there would be nothing precluding that. I guess I would have to see what the intended use of the property was to be able to give you a definitive answer. But
well, and I'll just chime in, and I have spoken before, and I think I've even had the same conversation with Robin. Really the idea was that you utilize a home as 1, storage, 2, office, and 3 is like a way to, as museum and display space, right? And so
Right.
that is, that will generate a level of traffic that is not accounted for within, our residential uses. I know some examples that, Annette and I and Robin and I have spoken about are, the Dr. Osinian Sweet House, and that has, that has its own historical significance as, as his own home, not just, a house. Same with sort of like Frank Lloyd Wright has, there's home tours with there, but then, there's an intrinsic historic value to that particular home and how it, is woven into the fabric of the community. So, there's an extra layer of nuance there to having it in a residential district, right? So.
Well, I guess we could, like I think the letter said, we priced it out about $800 a month. That's, roughly $10,000 a year is what we would need. The one space that we did look at, if it were to be the city that was paying for it, I don't know that would be doable because it's on a lower level. You have to go downstairs. There's no elevator. It's not ADA compliant. So, I mean, we could look at other possibilities. We've called around at one time, and this is actually the space we were looking at is an insurance company, and it was a nice renovated big space, and at the time it was available. But I think was that $800 a month, and that is that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
And I don't know if that included utilities or not. I'm not sure about that.
I don't remember.
Just for time's sake, I would just recommend putting together a budget or budget/proposal to present to the council, and that it would include any type of fundraising ideas that you may have, or what the historical society is also going to contribute to it, just so we'll have a better working idea of what the ask is. Yeah, and I guess that'll be coming from the standpoint, it might be 2, honestly, and I'm not sure of this, so Scott, keep me right, of the cost if it was in a house or if it was in a commercial building. That makes sense.
yeah, I think what in addition to a budget, what you'd be looking for is what what their intended use of the space would be for. If it's, again, if it's gonna be, like Susie said, more of a museum showplace type of situation, or is it gonna be simply storage and meetings? So that I think would go a long way in assisting council in determining how to move forward with it.
Yeah, and
Okay,
also
thank
think
you.
about some outreach programs that you guys could try to employ in 21. I mean, we're not living in the same world we used to live in, so you can get as creative as possible.
Okay,
Okay.
And I think, you know, part of it is it'd be a little easier to do outreach if we had a location where people could actually come in and see the stuff that we have, which has been a problem. I mean, we were in a basement of one of the place just north of Discount Tire. You know, it's fairly derelict property. It wasn't the nicest place, and there really wasn't a lot of room for people to even move around in there.
Mhm.
And I think the outreach is going to be displaying the type of items that we have. You know, otherwise people just, you know, we're just kind of locked in a basement working on, you know, archiving the information. But I think we could put something together. I think a lot of the information is in the letter, but we can just consolidate it down to say, you know, what we're looking for and what we would need. And I think what, you know, ultimately, I think somebody mentioned that, you know, it'd be nice if you could form a committee and have us work with somebody to see, you know, what's possible. You know, obviously we don't know what's possible for the city to do and what the zoning regulations are and, you know, financially what they can do, but
And I think that, and Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you mean outreach as in what the historical society, like grants and things like that, they can find.
Yeah,
You mean
yeah.
by outreach? Yeah. So to kind of,
Yes.
not outreach for to get support, I guess, it'd be more or less to look into the grants that's available
Exactly.
through the
Right.
state, the county, and things like that. So,
Right.
Cheryl, will you take care of trying, Cheryl or Susie, to put together a committee or have someone assigned to the committee? Because I'm not sure how we want to do that.
Well, do you want just to be staff, or do you want some of the council members to be involved?
It would make sense for Chris, wouldn't it? Or maybe Chris.
I wasn't sure, Chris, so that's
Yeah,
why
I'm not sure.
I offered, because since he's recreation and this could possibly be the DDA, it could possibly, I'm not really sure who. Maybe we'll have to mull this one over for a second. And I'm sorry that I'm rushing because we only got 30 minutes and we have
right.
stuff on our agenda. So I don't want to put anything on the council's plate as putting them on a committee either. I'm almost afraid to ask, but Salim's not here, so maybe Salim the committee. So no, let's talk that out for amongst us, I guess. If you could send something out to see if there's a council person that wants to volunteer to be on the committee. And also, I just don't know who it would be from the staff perspective.
Probably me or Susie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, but I just wanted you all to sign up yourselves for that. So
Fine.
if you
I
all,
may be interested. Let me think about it.
okay, how about this? We'll get back together and we'll talk about this via maybe email over the holiday. I'm saying vacation because I'm on a vacation, but over the holiday, whatever you want to call it, and then get back together on, what is that, Monday? When do we come back together? The 4th?
January 4th.
Okay, and then we'll talk about it on the 4th.
Yeah, it's definitely an impressive collection, and it would be great if we could find a way to make it more accessible and find a more permanent home. Every time I've been in that office there, it's you could spend hours in there looking through the stuff. So
Yep.
And
I
I don't know if you've been to our location. I mean, we had a space in the city hall, right? And that was just a tiny bit of the whole collection that we have.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you all for coming. I appreciate you for bringing this to our attention. And if you all can also, I guess, maybe be available on the 4th for the study session, perhaps, I don't know if I'm pushing it with putting together a budget by that time, or just an idea of what a proposal may look like. I might be pushing it, so don't, you know.
We'll get
Might
together
be.
and figure out if we're gonna be ready by then and
Okay.
let you know.
Okay.
I would
thank
say
you.
revisit the COVID grant because you guys, it may apply to you.
Okay,
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
thanks.
Thank you.
thank you.
So next is the marijuana licensing and application process, and just being very conscious of the time. We only have really 30 minutes for the next 4 things that we have to talk.
I don't really have anything new for you guys tonight with respect to that. Still waiting to get feedback and comments. I'm getting a little bit of stuff. Kelly had sent me a couple inquiries, and Bruce, I've got his comments, and Susie. But if any of the other members of council have any feedback on the draft ordinances that were presented at the joint meeting, we would be happy to hear that. Jill and I were talking about taking it to making it an agenda item for the planning commission to work at their next meeting. I think, Susie, I think that's probably going to happen.
Sweet, I was planning for it.
But that's pretty much all I have update. I don't have any new updates for that tonight.
Well, I did have a question on this, and that was I guess it is it's on page 17, which is going to be the license application evaluation. This is, well, I guess it all is proposed, but things can be added to this, like what we talked about, Scott, or what I sent in the email about points regarding someone that is an existing business owner in Lathrop. I saw something that just came by, Cheryl, what just came in an email? Someone had a question about it too.
About whether they were Oakland-based business or a Michigan
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, because that was my
Yeah.
question too, because I saw that in here where I thought I was being very savvy and put sticky notes everywhere, but obviously one fell out because there was one that was in there that was like, yeah, I learned it from you, Bruce. So,
Yeah, so that's part, and that's part of what the type of feedback that we're looking for. Just for those that weren't, Kelly's inquiry was whether or not there was any distance limitations with respect to places of worship, and there aren't currently, but that's something that if council feels strongly, they have that ability to include in their ordinance, in the zoning ordinance. So that type of feedback is what we're looking for. We haven't. What I would like to do ideally would be to get this language hammered down, and then once that's in a more concrete form, then we can start working on the evaluation and point system. How that's going to be scored, who's going to be doing that scoring, and what criteria they're going to utilize to do that. Just some early thoughts on that I have had. I think, and actually it's been recommended to me from some other community attorneys that are currently allowing and currently are accepting applications or were accepting applications and have issued licenses, is to actually have an independent panel do the evaluations and point assessment, taking it completely out of the council's hands. Not that you guys aren't capable, but it certainly will take some of the pressure off you, because if you haven't already been, you're going to be getting inundated with requests and proposals and offers of assistance and everything else. So by removing that from your plate, I mean, your responsibility will be to either approve or not approve an ordinance, and then once it's approved, then the body or the entities that are tasked with carrying out that ordinance, that'll be their responsibility to ensure that it's done appropriately, fairly, and transparently.
Yeah, that was the observation when we were collecting data. So they did have an independent body that, approved applications, reject applications, did the scoring. I don't think any council from any of the cities we looked at had anything to do with that. So you're right, an independent body should be set up, and it should be able to conduct any scoring or any rejections.
Yeah, like I said, I definitely want council's input on the criteria and the types of businesses that they want to see in their community. That's going to be the role, the primary role of the council in this process. So yeah, thoughts, feedback, keep it coming in, because it's all getting shared and incorporated, and hopefully, like I said, we'll have a more concrete working draft here as we get further along in this process. So
When do you want the feedback?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Can we set a deadline for the feedback? Because I know we've been talking, months ago about keeping this as a, briskly moving process, and it seems like we've kind of stalled on the feedback here. I mean, could we do like a deadline of the end of this week for feedback or something like this, so that you guys can move on and begin the next phase?
yeah, I think again, we'll give you a little break for the holidays, but if you could get it to me by the end of the first week January, that way we'll have enough time to incorporate that before we present it to Planning Commission for their input. And like I had said, and I don't remember if I said this at the last council meeting or if I said it at the last Planning Commission meeting, but there's a lot of overlap right now between the two ordinances, because Jill worked on the zoning and I worked on the general ordinance. So we are going to be merging some of the stuff, site requirements, et cetera, from mine into hers, and vice versa. So that it's not quite so redundant. So yeah, that's kind of what we're working on right now, is cleaning that up.
Okay.
What was the date that you'd like to have it by? Did you say first week in January?
Yeah, let me look at calendar real quick.
First Friday is January 1st, or the second Friday is the 8th.
Yeah, if you could have it to me by the end of that first full week, the 8th, that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
And again, I'm not opposed to, if you have an idea or something, you can send it in just piecemeal. Send me an email that says, hey, I thought about this. And like I said, that'll all be included in our discussions on it. So
Yeah, I'll send out a reminder to the DDA and Planning Commission too, to make sure that they give their feedback.
Okay, thank you. The infrastructure committee update, capital improvements, just to give you an idea, again, it's 6:37.
Yep, I can do this in, I hope I can hopefully do this in 5 to 10 minutes tops. But so the formal recommendation is being entered in today, and will be up for acceptance and approval. Ideally, if council does agree to approving it, then the first formal step would take place on January 4th, when we would issue the notice of intent, which basically indicates that council is formally informing the citizens that we are planning on issuing a bond, and then they would have a 45-day right of referendum. And so we want to, I mean, again, if this is something that we all agree to, we want this to go in parallel with the other bond that we're getting for roads. And because there is a 45-day right of referendum, working backwards, we would need to get this going, by our January 4th meeting. I do want to quickly walk through a couple things that have changed. Obviously, we went through this in detail at the last meeting, but as Cheryl and myself and Scott have gotten into the weeds a little bit more, trying to refine some estimates and so forth, we have come across a few changes. And on page 2 of the document, I don't know what page it is in the packet, but on page 2 of the document, just with respect to lead, one of the things we talked about last time was having to identify the materials and dig down 5 feet in front of everybody's house to look at the actual pipe at the stop box. We did raise the estimate there from $650 to actually $625 to $725 per dig, essentially, because we wanted to make sure, or we know that we're going to be breaking up some sidewalks in order to be able to do this, and we have to repair it. So we upped the estimate there, and that added another $60,000 and brought this particular project up to $1.16 million. And then also the other thing that we did is Scott indicated that he had given us an estimate that was a little bit low for the abatement. In those instances where we do have to abate, we were about $1,000 low on our estimate, so we raised that estimate. And we ended up allotting about $500,000 for abatements. Now, hopefully we won't have to use that. It's a big unknown. We don't think we have a lot of lead in the city or galvanized, but again, we're not going to know until we do the actual evaluations. With respect to water loss on the next page, page 3, a few things here. As you guys have probably seen, and we need to encourage, we did launch the home resident investigation process, or whatever you want to call it, where they'll help us, residents can help us by going through a process to identify the materials in their meter. We've been advertising that, and we'll continue to advertise that because we are required to identify not only at the stop box in the front of the house, but also in the home. The second thing we talked about was doing a pilot study just to help us feel a little bit more comfortable, although from everyone we've talked to in the industry, it does look like it's the water meters as to why we have the 40% losses. Seems like it's a pretty standard problem as the meters age. So we talked about doing a $3,000 project where we would replace 10 meters in the city and then have send those meters out for testing. We've changed our approach on that because we did find out that we could actually have the meters tested in home. So what we'll need to do is get 10 volunteers that will allow a tester to come into the home. And that was only roughly about $125 per meter. So it drops the cost of that project down from about $3,000 to about $1,300. And also, it really didn't make sense to replace these people's meters with meters that we have in stock when we're going to have to turn around and replace them again with whatever meters we end up finally, whatever particular meter we end up doing the citywide replacement with. And then the other change here is the estimate. We did get a formal estimate for replacing all the meters in the city, and it was a little higher than what we had originally budgeted for. So you can see in the document, it's up here at $860,000 to replace all the meters. Now, we do think we'll be able to bring that down, and talking with the vendor and some things we talked about at our last infrastructure meeting, we do think we'll be able to take advantage of some discounts, and hopefully we'll be able to get that down a little bit lower than what we show here. Sanitary sewer, retention tank, water system, nothing's changed there. Fire hydrants, the number of hydrants that I had quoted earlier was low. I was given the wrong number. We actually have 243 fire hydrants, and the only change that we've made here is in the initial document when we talked last time, we were talking about doing 20 hydrants a year for the next 6 years. Because this would be under, that was when Scott and I were talking, and Cheryl and I were talking about doing this from the general fund over a separate program. But when we bring it in under the capital improvement bond, we have 3 years to do the work. And so we had to double that. So we would be doing 40 hydrants a year for 3 years. Same thing with the gate valves on the next page. We were talking about doing 27 a year for 6 years. So we had to change that to 54 each year for the next 3 years. Okay. So, those are the changes. Let me, before I talk about the financing, because I think that's probably the part that everybody's the most interested in. Any questions on the actual, all the detail that was in the document and what I just went over? Susie, you're talking, but you're on mute.
Just talking to myself, sorry.
Oh, that's funny.
Just the fire hydrant part of
Yeah,
it.
oh boy, that's exactly where I was gonna go. You
The-
go, man. Yeah.
So the fire hydrant part, because I seem to recall a couple of years back that some fire hydrants were replaced, and I don't know what that program was. It was before I was actually on council. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a Southfield driven project or it was a combination of Lathrop and Southfield. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
We did do some fire. I don't know the specifics of it. I just know that we did do some fire hydrant replacements a while ago. So we have 243. I think the number is 243 fire hydrants, but we're only going to be replacing or refurbishing. What did I say? 120 of them. So some of them are new, don't need to be refurbished, or are newer.
Yeah.
But most of the fire hydrants, or a large percentage of them, were put in the before 1930. So yeah. So it's overdue. Hopefully, if we do, with all the stuff we're talking about doing, especially the fire hydrants, hopefully our fire rating will improve, which will help us on insurance, both from the city perspective as well as homeowners. So there could be some savings there too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else before I hit the financials? Okay, so if you turn to the page that's got the spreadsheet, it's page 9 in the document. Real quickly, just as a reminder, and up at the top, I show our assets, and we've got $3.8 million in the water fund. Currently, we're proposing using half of that, so we've got about 1.88 million would be an asset for this program. The one thing that's changed somewhat dramatically from our last discussion is we had the wrong number up here that didn't account for where you see the 13.8 million cubic feet expected to be sold. We had 25.4 million there because it didn't incorporate the 40% water loss that we're expecting again next year. And so what that does is the dollars raised through the capital component actually dropped from about 208,000 to 127,000. So last time we talked, that number was 208,000. It's dropped down to 127,000. I just wanted to point that out because I'll come back to that in a minute. In terms of the estimated project costs, again, we went from 1.1 million to 1.16 million here for lead testing. The water meters went up, I think, about a couple 100,000, and then down at the bottom of that table, or that portion right there, the lead abatement, ditching, sidewalking, and other, that went up to $1 million to accommodate the increased costs that we talked about with respect to lead material identification as well as abatement. So when all is said and done, after we take the 6.9 million total project costs, add in $145,000 of bond financing and subtract out the 1.18 million that we have in the bank, so to speak, we need about $5.1 million, which you can see there in the chart. And to pay off a bond of $5.18 million, what we need is $336,700 per year. And we have, this is where the number above that I talked about comes into place. We have 127,000 that we're expecting to get in each year. So that leaves us with a shortfall of about $209,000. And so to recoup that money, going down a little bit lower, to recoup the 209,000, we were talking about doing that via the water rate, increasing the capital component of the water rate. And what that would come out to be right now here, as you see, is about $9.80 a month. Now, the one thing I want to talk about a little bit here in detail is the $9.81 per month increase. Now, you need to keep in mind that that's the theoretical maximum. There are a lot of variables that we can't essentially estimate, and I'll talk about that in a second. But that's the theoretical maximum. We don't expect that residents will ever hit that 9.81 or $9.81, and that's for a variety of reasons. So first reason, there's 7 or 8 reasons. Let me just go through them real quickly so you get an understanding of why it's kind of a variable rate. And again, 9.8 is the highest, and we'll never see that. But we wanted to, and let me step back. We wanted to give you a number, a monthly dollar amount, and so the only number that we were able to give is the theoretical maximum. But again, the reasons why it will be lower, first off, one of the big things that we'll be doing as part of this project is replacing the water meters. And as the water meters are replaced, the capital revenue goes up. So if we can get the water loss down to 20%, hopefully lower, but our engineer says, we should probably expect around 20% given the age of our system. But if we can get it to 20%, that number drops immediately from $9.80 to $7.80. And that's going to happen in the first 3 years of this project. Every year we're going to be replacing probably about 600-700 meters or so. So probably about 600 meters. And so that's going to gradually go up, which is going to bring that $9.81 down. So again, it would drop to $7.82 once all the meters are replaced, but it would have an immediate effect. The other reason is we're not pulling all the funds at once. So we're not pulling $5.1 million all at once. So it's not, this $9.81 assumes that we're pulling $5.1 million from day one, and we're going to do multiple issuances. So it's going to start out being much less than that. And as it does go up, as we do subsequent issuances, It's still going to be depressed though because of the replacement of the water meter. So again, it won't rise to the level that we're showing on the sheet here. Another big reason as well is the capital improvement bond includes upfront money for sidewalk repairs as well as ditch the sidewalk program and the ditch program. That money is going to be reimbursed to the city from the residents. And so as we get that money each year from the residents through the special assessment, that money can then be put directly towards our annual payment for the capital bond, which is going to reduce the amount of money that we need to raise through the capital component of the water rate. We're also expecting, or we're applying for grants. We're hoping to get some grants. Any grant that we get reduces the amount of money that we need, which in turn reduces the amount of money we need to pay back. And then, yeah, some of these projects will end up costing a little, hopefully less than what we have here. So for example, we talked about the water meters being $860,000. We think we can bring that down by $80,000 or $90,000. So again, that has a depressive effect on the amount that we need to raise to pay in order to be able to pay back. And then the other issue as well is that we have $1.8 million in the water fund that we're using. If we use that right off the bat in year one, again, that means we're going to need to take a much lower amount in year one, which means, again, a lower payback. And so all these things that I've talked about are all variable, but the nice thing is, as you guys all know, we recalculate the water rate every year. So as these variables are ebbing and flowing, no pun intended, that'll wash out in the water rate. So the water rate will change every year, but we're anticipating that it's probably going to hover somewhere more in the $5 to $8 range per month. So we're looking less than $100 per year per resident for about 6.9, almost $7 million worth of work, on our infrastructure. So that's pretty much what I had. I'm sure there's questions, so I'll stop talking because I know we're short on time.
Are you taking into account the real water losses that you guys are going to encounter, not just on the meter side? Because as we repair those, that estimate that you gave is going to drop substantially, not just by the 20%, but I think it's going to be below the 20%. Have you taken that into account?
Well, no. What we estimated was going from 40. When I said dropping from $9.81 to $7.82,
Yeah.
That's assuming we get to 20%. So we took a conservative approach. I'm hoping we'll get lower than that.
Right.
And if we do get lower than that, then it's going to drop even more below $7.80. It might drop to $6 or $6.50.
Yeah.
So again, we wanted to be able to give you a number so you had a sense of what this was going to cost. And so what we did is the only number we could really, because all of these things are variable, we're not going to know until we get into we're not going to know the magnitude of some of these things until we get into the project itself. And so we wanted to give a number so that you could at least get a sense of where it is. So we gave you the theoretical maximum that residents would need to be hit with. And again, it'll vary from year to year, and it should be significantly lower than that.
Yeah.
Or it will be lower than that, I should say.
Right. Any negotiating on the new fire hydrants you guys are targeting?
Well, we'll be negotiating, all of this will be competitive bid. We're going to do what we can to, get the prices down on all of these projects. Because, again, I mean, once the bond is approved, all of our bidding process goes to, the standard process that we've always used in the past. An RFP will go out for most of these things. Sunday we'll be doing some of them. He's given us a very good price on some of this stuff. But RFPs will go out. It'll be competitively bid. Where appropriate, and
Yep, I understand. Thank you.
Because we've ran out of time, we're just gonna skip down if there's any public comments real quick before we have to switch over to the actual council meeting. Is there any public comments? Girl, do you see anyone that is their hand raised or anything? I don't think I see it.
I don't see anyone who's raised their hands to ask to participate in public comment. You did have the one person at Salem.
And then
Um,
Joe Robinson also has hand up.
Yeah, I should mention too, the committee members are, some of the committee members are on. I'm sorry, I neglected to say that, some of them on. So if you want to ask questions of them as well, they are here. Or at least Joe and Mike, I think, are here. Joe's raising her hand.
Yeah, just to piggyback off
Bruce.
what was explained, we were trying to provide the worst case scenario. So at worst case, $9.81 is what is to be expected as an increase on a monthly basis for the residents versus giving a lower dollar amount and then having to come back and adjust. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
So there was
I
someone,
really appreciate the way you guys broke down the cost though to the residents. It just does, it sounds more palatable.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that.
Yeah, and a large part of this, I said this last time too, a large part of this is possible because of the way that the city is kind of, you know, banked some of this money and planned for the future. So, you know, we've got $1.8 million that really helps us to defray, you know, what we have to hit with the residents within the future. So, you know, that really helps.
thank you guys. Ed Salem also has a question. You're still on mute, Mr. Salem.
I saw him pop up for a second.
You trying to talk?
I can hear you. Hello? Mr. Salem?
So,
Oh, Sam? Is it Sam?
Pardon me? Okay, Cheryl, you can put him back on mute. Or Kelda, sorry, Kelda, I didn't saw you just pop up. Is there anyone else that has for public comments? Okay, so it looks like for the actual city council meeting, we will be talking about I guess we only have the appointments to discuss. So the discussion will be during our council meeting, I guess. So if you have any questions, hold on to them. And that, wait a minute, we got one more person raising their hand. Scott R.
If that's me, I don't think I raised my hand.
Scott Wrangler.
Yeah,
No, it looks like it's a phone number, 3135.
no, that's not me.
It's popping up weird for me. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Okay, I'm not sure who is at the one. Oh, geez, it keeps moving for me. I can't even.
Yeah, so
13135. If Calda, you can unmute them.
he's off mute.
I
I can't, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay.
Can't what?
You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Okay. Hi, Mayor Garrett and the members of council. Quick question for you guys. I'm a property owner in Lathrop Village. I own the lot on Southfield, just I think it's just south of the DXL over there. I'm not sure if you know the lot that I'm talking about.
Yeah, we do.
So in regards to the cannabis issue, I received a few phone calls regarding that property. And I was wondering if the the city would allow multiple applicants to apply for that property rather than just allowing one person apply.
So we have not gotten to the point of even approving a cannabis industry coming to Lathrop Village. And then, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to private property, whoever wants to buy the property, that's not something that the city would be involved in. It would just be for the licensure if cannabis is approved.
If it's approved, right?
Yeah, I think and right now, the way the ordinance is drafted, again, it's not finalized yet, but right now, one of the requirements would be that they would either have to show proof of ownership of the property or a lease agreement with the property. So unless it was a situation where multiple entities had lease options or something on the property, I don't see how you could have multiple applicants for the same parcel of property.
I see. Okay. So I think you just answered my question. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What's your name again? Can you?
I'm Ali Darwish of JRY Properties. JRY Properties.
You said Ali. What's your last name?
Ali Darwich, Darwich.
Okay, thanks. That's for the clerk, by the way.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I don't see any more hands up, so what I'm gonna do is go ahead and adjourn the study session, and we can adjourn for we're doing the council meeting first, not the closed session, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it's a different link, yes?
Yes.
It is? Okay, well then I will close out the study session. See you all in a minute.